Hi everyone, thanks for joining today. So I'm Craig, I'm the Technical and Product Director for Fox in the UK, joined by Derry Bergin today, who works alongside me, supporting installers and also is our marketing executive, so it's somebody you might have contact with going forward. We're based here today, we're doing this from our Coventry office. This is our main service centre. I'm in our training room here, just to mention to you that if you haven't been on our formal training course, you can book that online on our tech website, and it takes place here. So just let you know, we do have this new facility open. So the purpose of today then is to give you an overview really of the new product range. It's going to be an assumption that most of you at least will know about our existing mature product range. So we're going to just introduce to you some of the newer products, some of which have been out for a month or two, others which are literally fresh. And we'll give you a thorough overview of that. If you're okay to skip on there, George, and we'll. Okay, so there's a couple of slides here before we get into the product stuff. Just emphasising where we are as a brand in the UK now. We're currently the market leader in terms of domestic storage, specifically. Very healthy market share, sort of huge rapid growth since our incorporation in 2019. Currently a Bloomberg Tier 1 manufacturer, and that's something that's not easy to get. It's based on our sort of our global strengths, our manufacturing facilities, our R&D. Yeah, so it's something we achieved last year. And just to put some context behind that, if again, George, if you just want to move on to the next one. This is really for those of you who aren't massively familiar with Fox as a brand. One of our key benefits is our ownership structure. We're part of a much larger group of companies. Within that group of companies, we have mining facilities, we have cell manufacturers. So we have a fully integrated supply chain all the way through from the rare earth metals that we take out of the ground all the way to the finished products. Gives us that advantage in terms of product development, let's say supply chain cost, and enables us to bring out the products, quality products at a really good competitive price, specifically in terms of batteries and the price per kilowatt hour. So that's kind of the key to really our success. And we also have a Chinese-British partnership in terms of how we're structured as a company. I've already mentioned market share. Obviously, service is another important point. We'll kind of look to that at the end, but just to mention it now, in terms of everything is UK-based. You pick up the phone to us, you'll always get through to our UK techs. I know that for some of you that is quite important that you have that local support. And I think there's just one more after this before we move into the products. Yeah, so I mean, ease of install is something we've really focused on as a company, is making that installation and commissioning process as simple as possible. And you know, the term plug and play is used a lot, and sometimes it's a little bit sort of flaky in the sense that it isn't. But our products, especially in terms of the batteries, are as plug and play as you can possibly get. You connect the cables, pre-terminated, pre-supplied, you plug them in, you hit the on switch, and your batteries auto-address, auto-recognized by the inverter. And it's been key for us really in making that install process as simple as possible. I've already mentioned as being a Tier 1 manufacturer, so we can probably get into the guts of it now with the products. So this is a quick sort of visual of our current single phase range and how we're pitching that. Okay, so what we're trying to do is have a solution that fits every scenario, regardless of install location, the customer's needs, their plans for expansion. So we have, you know, the modular solutions, or the wall mounted or stackable, and then we have the all-in-one solutions, the Evo being, you know, the pretty sort of, you know, glass fronted, slimline wall mounted solution, and then the Power Cube to the right of that as you look at this image, which is obviously that stackable all-in-one solution with the inverter on top. So we kind of have this full range of products, and we're adapting each suite of products within the single phase range to meet all requirements and have a solution for everybody. So again, yeah, if we move on, and I think, okay, the Power Cube, I've kind of included it in this, even though it's been out for a little while, but I think it's worth just giving you a very quick reminder of what it is. What you're seeing there is a 3 to 11 kilowatt inverter module on top. Okay, so the top two modules are actually the inverter and the BMS integrated, they're built in. And then you just simply stack our EQ batteries. So what you have is a stackable modular all-in-one. Like I say, 3 to 11 kilowatts in the inverter. All of our inverters now have 200%, all the single phase hybrids have 200% PV oversize ratio. So you can scale up on the PV and get that DC to DC charging advantage that allows. And then we have sort of standards now in terms of fire suppression, battery heating, and everything else. So this is a really sort of compact, small footprint, but very scalable. You can get this one to 30 kilowatt hours, utilizing our EQ 4300 batteries and the full stack of 7 of those. This is IP66. So everything we're talking about today, well, there's one exception, but in terms of the single phase storage, it's all, could be installed outdoors. This one does have a slightly higher IP rating at IP66. So it is really primed for outdoor installations. So PowerCube been out for a little while now, 6 months or so, but still finding its feet in the market. And obviously we're still trying to turn people onto it and make them aware that it's now available. Quite a few going in, and its feedback's really good on this. So yeah, that's the PowerCube. Just a quick refresher on that for those of you that are not familiar with it. So the Evo then. So the Evo again has been launched a couple of months now, but it's still very new to the market. So it's a fully integrated inverter and battery system. If we probably go to the next one, I've got a feeling though, George, that the next slide may be a video which we don't think we can play. These videos, by the way, that are all available on our YouTube channel if you want to sort of view them. That also, we're quite happy for you to take any videos that we publish through YouTube or through our other channels and embed them on your own website and do whatever you want with those. So yeah, so if we go back to the Evo itself then, so this is an IP66 all-in-one prime for outdoors. Okay, it has either 2 or 3 MPPTs. Okay, so the 5 has 2, the 8 and the 10 have 3. Okay, we have 3 inverter options, as I've just mentioned, 5, 8, 10 kilowatts. There will be a 3.7 version as well very soon, so a G98 version of the product will be available. It has a low start voltage at 80 volts. It will output at 80 volts. It doesn't need to hit a higher voltage and then works down to 80. So a 3-panel array is fine. We don't recommend 2 panels, even though your VOC might slightly be above the 80 volts. You have got the issue of voltage falling under load and things like that. So 3 panels is the recommended minimum. It does have a screen on it. You can't see it on this image. On the opposite side, there's an LCD touchscreen. Okay, so for easy commissioning and quick check of settings and status. The sides are covered with magnetic panels as well. So you can see in the image, it's exposed where you've got the isolation switch and the USB port, but there is a magnetic panel that sits above that. And the same applies on the other side where you've got the LCD screen. Obviously, it's a new product. It's primed for latest panel developments. Very high IMP-ISC. EPS, we're going to talk about that as kind of a separate thing as we skip through, and then standard features as you'd expect. One difference with this product from some of our previous products is it's integrated Wi-Fi, so you can probably just about see at the very top of that image on the right where it's got a label saying Wi-Fi antenna. That antenna comes built in, by the way. So yeah, it's built-in Wi-Fi. It can also take a dongle. So you can see that there is a USB port. You could optionally put in a Wi-Fi dongle. You wouldn't need to, but it's that option's there as well, which may be something you might want to do when we release a new 4G data logger for this. It will need to go into that USB port. Also a built-in Ethernet port as well, LAN port. You can probably just about make it out on the image. And you can parallel these. Okay, so for expansion, you put units in parallel. That requires an EMS called the AI link. Okay, some of you may be familiar with that, having used it on our 3-phase products. So just to make you aware that in order to parallel these to scale, you do need that EMS device, the AI link. Okay, I think we can move on to the next one. Okay, so this is just looking at the battery then. So integrated into this unit is a 10.24 kilowatt hour LEP battery, LFP battery essentially. This will provide high charge rate. So if you had the 10 kilowatt inverter model of the Evo. Give or take, because obviously the charge power rather just is subject to certain variables, things like temperature and SOC. But all things being equal, it will charge at the full rate of 10 kilowatts. So what you're getting here is essentially 1C charging. Okay, so the battery in just over an hour will fully charge. In that example I've given, where you've got a 10 kilowatt charger, it's 95% DoD on this. Historically, our products have been 90%, but this allows you to use 95% of the rated capacity. Again, it's IP66. It's actually IP66 as you look at it there, without the cover on. Okay, so the cover is purely aesthetic, really. Obviously, it's giving it a bit more protection, clearly, but the IP66 rating actually applies to it with the cover off. This has integrated battery heaters. We're using a slightly different cell type in these. So historically, we've used prismatic cells. So you've got pouch cells, we've got prismatic, which is obviously a superior cell type. With this one, we've gone for cylindrical automotive grade battery cells. The main benefit of those is obviously it's enabled us to get quite a bit of storage in a relatively small space. So high density. So really high quality battery cell inside this unit. There's built-in fire suppressant inside the battery containment as well. And we're looking at really high round trip efficiencies on this in excess of 95%. Okay, so that's an overview really of the battery within the Evo. Again, you can skip on. So alongside the launch of the Evo, we've brought out our new whole home backup gateway. It's called the EPS SP. Okay. Now the crucial thing to note about this is, even though it was launched alongside the Evo, it's compatible with all of our single phase hybrids. So those of you familiar with the H1, the K series, this will work with those, and also the Power Cube we've also mentioned as well. So it's universal across all of our single phase hybrid and AC chargers. By the way, the Evo can be AC coupled as well, so it doesn't have to have DC input. So just in case anybody had that question in mind. So the whole home gateway then is a full home backup solution. So tails in, tails out. Okay, inside that unit you have a built-in Modbus meter with a CT pre-installed, and you simply cable from the meter via a Wago into your comms plug on your inverter, whether it's a H1, a K series, Evo, Power Cube, whatever it might be. So you run that cable directly there. Everything that you need is inside that gateway. Has an ATS. It also has a manual override as well. Option to connect in a second inverter. Okay, so if there is a secondary inverter on site, you can connect it in through this EPS box. And what it won't do at the moment is it won't keep that third-party inverter alive in a power outage. Obviously, you can run off the Evo or our battery system, wherever it is you have installed, run off the PV if it's there, and obviously off the batteries. But it won't keep the secondary inverter alive. However, in terms of future developments, there's a new version of this coming early next year, Q1 next year, which will have kind of a microgrid functionality where you can connect in a secondary inverter, and should the power go down, and let's say that secondary inverter is one of ours, or it's a Solis, or it's a Solax, whatever it might be, it will continue to output, because it would basically give that what is effectively a grid supply, or simulate a grid supply in the event that the power was to go down. So just to let you know, that feature is coming on a different version of this EPS box as we get into the early part of next year. It's IP65. Okay, like I say, it's automatic changeover. It switches over in about 20 milliseconds. Okay, so the lights will flicker. It's kind of that scenario. It's not instant, but it's a very quick changeover. And automatically, when grid's restored, it switches back to normal operation. So this is available now, priced very well, by the way, comparative to equivalent products from other manufacturers. Obviously, we will talk about that now. That's a conversation you have with Segen, but it is available. Has gone in decent numbers already, and the feedback we're getting is very positive. So yeah, just to make you aware, we do have this whole home solution. You can still wire the EPS in the way that you were previously with Fox products. You don't have to use this. You can come straight out of the EPS outputs on any of our products, and you can go into a double socket with an RCD, or you can go into a split board, have dedicated circuits on EPS circuits on a split board arrangement, and keep them powered in bypass mode when the grid's connected. But obviously, we've launched this as a whole home solution. So yeah, I think we can move on. This again is just giving you the key features of that gateway. Okay, so 100 amp max supply, 63 amps. So it's got 63 amp MCB built in. You can change that out. We do allow you to swap it if you want to down rate that because you're using one of our smaller hybrids. Yeah, and I think most of those points there are available on the data sheet. Should you wish to check in on them again? But yeah, just dimensions and stuff like that. 16 kilos, and you know, it's pretty compact for one of these devices, but obviously it's still, you know, you've got to find room for it. So you can see the DIMMs there. And as mentioned previously, it's got a built-in comms meter, so it's all good to go and very easy to install. Okay, so we're going to, again, you know, the focus today really is the new stuff. Okay, so we're not going to dwell on the existing products too much. You're probably already familiar with them. So we're going to move on from the single phase products to this new three-phase system. Okay, so we're talking here about the H3 Plus, new three-phase hybrid. And although that will work with different battery types, it will work, for example, with the EQ4800s, which are, you may know, the stackable EQ batteries. It's been launched alongside this new battery called the CQ16. Okay, so we're going to delve into this a bit more deeply on the next few slides. Again, that video, unfortunately, I don't think we can play. H3 Plus. Okay, so it's 50 to 125 kilowatt models. Now, the 125 is already here. Okay, so we have stock of those. Some of the smaller units, the 50 is following on, and I think the 80 early next year. So just be mindful of that, you know, we're phasing this in as it's a recent product launched. It has up to 8 trackers with 2 strings per MPPT, so the maximum number of inputs. So you take the 125, for example, has 16 inputs with 8 independent trackers. It also has 3 battery inputs, which is actually key, because we'll talk about that in a second in terms of the scalability on the storage is huge on this. Okay, and then pretty much standard features there. It also supports 100% unbalanced output. Okay, across three phases. So that's a new feature that is obviously might be of interest to you. And then parallel for these inverters, we don't need an EMS. These parallel directly as a master and slave setup by connecting data cables between the inverters installed in parallel. As a very quick EPS switch over time as well. Okay, so I think we can probably skip on. This is summarizing that. So it's IP65. It does have a diesel gen input as well. Okay, so you can connect in a backup diesel generator. Compact and lightweight. That's probably over-egging it a little bit because it's a big old beast, but relative to what it's outputting, it is compact and lightweight. If you think about some of these big containerized C&I solutions, this is relatively small compared to those, but it's still quite a big unit. Yeah, and I think those 2 features I've already mentioned in terms of its switch time for EPS. Okay, so we're gonna loop back to the batteries on that, the CQ16, because I mentioned briefly on the H3 Plus the scalability. As we're sort of moving over to the batteries and the new I probably should have put the CQ16 here, but we'll come back to that and we'll talk about how you can scale to over 700 kilowatt hours on a single inverter. So if we move on then, I think what we're going to do now is just quickly introduce to you the new EP batteries. Okay, so the EP5 and EP11, they've been out on the market now for some time. Very popular battery, wall-mounted slimline, compatible across our product range. So what we've done here is we're bringing out a new variant of that, okay, EP6, EP12. To give them the names, as you can imagine, slightly more storage in there. Okay, so we're now 5.76 kilowatt hours on the EP6, 11.52 on the EP12. Pretty much everything else that you're familiar with on the EP5, EP10 applies here. So EP5, EP11, sorry. Now, it says they're slimline for wall mounting. They are still relatively slimline, but they are a bit deeper than the existing models. Okay, sort of depth, sort of height and width is the same, but the depth is slightly different. There's more cells in there. It's got higher capacity. The other key thing you'll note is that the color is now matched with the inverter color profile. Okay, whereas the previous EP batteries were obviously a darker grey. So there's a difference to the color. These can be paralleled in the same way. So you can parallel through our junction box up to 4 units in parallel. You can't, as with the EP5, EP11, you can't mix these. You parallel the same units. And that parallel junction box obviously will be made available in the same coloring as these new battery versions. It's still IP65. It's still got built-in fire suppressant, still got internal battery warming. So everything else is the same. Yeah, so that's really the key points. We will be keeping the EP5, EP11 in the market for a good while for purposes of expansion, for example. So if there's a concern there that these are going to replace those and you won't be able to source them, that won't be the case. We will ensure that we have stock of the other versions for the purposes of expansion for the foreseeable future. But again, this is just clarifying on the scalability of these. There is one slight outlier in this. You may be familiar with our H3 Pro, which is one of our 3-phase hybrids that has 2 battery inputs. So you can have up to 8 batteries on that particular model. But for everything else, it's up to 4. Okay, so we're coming back now to the CQ16, which I was talking about in relation to the H3 Plus. So these are 16 kilowatt hour battery modules. Okay, so historically with CNI, you've seen, and we have one, it's called the G-Max. Okay, so it's a cabinet-based, all-in-one, if you like. Now our G-Max is an AC coupled only, and it's around 200 kilowatt hours with a 100 kilowatt charger built in. They serve their purpose. You know, there's certain applications where that kind of solution works. The issue with them, of course, is that the maintenance costs are quite high because you have things like liquid coolants and you have refrigerant gases in there. They have to be serviced and maintained annually or biannually, and that adds to cost ongoing. So what we've done here is produce a CNI solution that's very scalable, that takes away a lot of that maintenance. It's much more modular, but enables you to scale really high. So we mentioned the H3 Plus. Now that has 3 battery inputs. Okay, now in a single bank of CQ16 batteries, as pictured there, you have 1 BMS and you have 15 batteries. Okay, that's a maximum battery bank. That will give you 241 kilowatt hours as pictured. Now you can have 3 of those, given that there are 3 battery inputs. So you're scaling up to over 720 kilowatt hours potentially on a single inverter. And you're doing that with modular batteries that don't have a lot of the maintenance challenges that you get with the cabinet-based solutions. Okay, now these are fan cooled. You can see on the image there, there's forced ventilation through fans. So they're an IP20 solution. It's important to stress that. So these are an indoor solution. So these would have to go into a plant room, or if it wasn't possible to put it in the main building, you could put these in some sort of shipping container outside the main building, but they do need to be protected because they're not protected against against rain and water ingress beyond the IP20 protection. They're built-in fire suppressant. You'll see there's a BMS unit there, top right, with the switch. So each bank of batteries, and you can have different configurations, would require 1 BMS. And they also sit on bases, and this is an important thing. If you're going to do any designs using this product, you need to be mindful that the configuration will differ depending on how many batteries you have. You can have a stack of 4 you could have two, you know, or you could, and a 3, you could have 2 3s, or you could, yeah, so the number of bases depends on how you configure the batteries. So what we have on our Tech Hub website, which I'll mention at the end, is we do have an article on there with a PDF on there that shows you various configurations of the batteries, which will enable you to determine how many bases you need when you place the order through Segen. Okay, so that's an important point, but it's a really exciting product for us in terms of what it gives us in the CNI space, in terms of cost per kilowatt hour, and of course, crucially, reducing those ongoing maintenance costs. Battery heating then. So I'm going to sort of just cover this briefly because it's something now that we have across the range of products that we sell in the UK. This was launched a year or so ago. It was in response really to sort of regulatory landscape, PAS, those sort of guidance documents that were sort of pushing installs outdoors. So we introduced this. It's a standard feature now on all of the EP batteries and on most of the EQs. We still have one product in the EQ range, the 4800, which will eventually have it, but obviously it's at the moment doesn't. So just be mindful of that. The way that the heating works then is and this is all customer controlled through the app, as you can see there. Very simple with sliders. They select a start temperature and end temperature. It keeps that battery within that temperature range, and obviously then prevents heavy derating of charge rates because of temperature. If you're outdoors or in a cold environment such as your garage, it's highly recommended, of course, that you activate this. It's easily activated through the app, on switch, off switch, and then there are settings that you would apply beneath that. So just to reiterate that is now a feature across our battery ranges. Okay, we're talking a little bit about FoxCloud. Now, FoxCloud is obviously our monitoring platform. All manufacturers have an app. Ours has gone through a few changes over the years. There was a major update to it around 18 months ago when we went from version 1 to version 2, but there are some further updates coming. Okay, so we can probably show the next slide, which I think there was a video there, so we'll skip that. Okay, so this is a bit of a roadmap really in terms of what's happening with the app. We did an update recently, which is already live, where we added in some new financial features, okay, where customers could add in their tariffs. So if they're on variable tariffs, you know, they've got, you know, peak, off peak, mid peak, or whatever it might be, they can enter those. And what the app will now do is give them financial benefit data based around their time of use tariffs. So that's quite a useful feature. So that was kind of the first of a series of changes and improvements that we're going to roll out to the app in coming months. A lot of this will be before the end of this year. Some of it will spill over into Q1 2026. One of the things that's coming is the mode scheduler. So this is the app function that is used for time of use events. It's going to go through a complete overhaul. So the UI will change. There's going to be enhanced functionality. It's going to be able to give you, say, templates and give you full day views, so it's visualized more than it is currently. So the updated mode scheduler will be available before the end of this year, I'm told. Listen, when you get those sort of timeframes, there can sometimes be some slippage because with beta testing, there may be things that emerge, but I'm pretty confident on that. The UI will change. Okay, so there'll be a new homepage and a new energy flow diagram. And what we're going to start to do, and it will be device dependent initially, okay, so don't anticipate that this will be across the whole range in the short term. We'll reduce the data polling time from the current 5 minutes down to 5 to 10 seconds. That will be a gradual process. The inverters that will benefit from that initially will be the newer H1s in K series that have built-in Wi-Fi. Okay, so I mentioned going back to the Evo that now has integrated Wi-Fi. I should mention we also have that now being rolled out with our existing hybrids as well. So integrated Wi-Fi now, everything that's coming into the country on the H1 has built-in Wi-Fi, doesn't have a dongle. The challenge there, of course, is we're in that transition period. So there's stock in the system that still has the dongle, the stock in the system that now has integrated. So please be aware of that. The important thing is every inverter you open will have Wi-Fi functionality in one form or another. Going back to the 5-second polling, that will apply initially then to the, I think it's the H1 with integrated Wi-Fi. Okay, so it's beta testing. It's in beta testing right now, but it will get rolled out and you'll start to see it applied as we go forward. We're also going to change the commissioning process for installers. One of the things confuses some people is the process of creating an account and binding it to yourselves as an installer or an agent and to the end user. That process is going to be improved. I've seen early demos of that, but I've not got a lot of detail on that because I think it's still being worked on. There's going to be big changes to the UI. Okay, so the actual user interface will improve and be more intuitive than I mean, obviously there was a big leap forward from version 1 to version 2, but there's further changes coming in a major update as we go through the next few months. And I've mentioned there also about the smart tariffs. Okay, so that's already been applied, but there's going to be further changes to that. The point here being, we've put a lot of resource, a lot of effort into some major changes to the app. But one of the things we're looking at is the AI. So at the moment, there's an AI chatbot function where you can ask it questions about your system, but that's just the beginning, really. As we go through into next year, we'll have AI automation. Okay, so optimizing your system by AI learning that, you know, will sort of take data from the system, optimize depending on the customer's desired outcome. That outcome might be energy efficiency, it might be revenue. They can make that selection, and then the AI will take control and schedule events accordingly to achieve that desired outcome. Okay, so a lot of it's based around weather forecasting and things like that. So that's a big change, and that will come early next year. It's in advanced testing at the moment. So you're going to see these updates rolled out. What we'll try and do as well, for those of you that are on this call that are approved Fox installers, you should be on our mailing list. We'll keep you updated via our monthly newsletter as and when these new features on the app are rolled out. Finally, on this, we have a new version of the FoxCloud as well. It's been in beta. This is the online web browser version, okay? So this is not the app. Now, this has been in beta now for about 6 months. It's come out of beta now, but it's running alongside the version 1, okay? So you can use either at the moment. There'll come a point when we will entirely switch over to FoxCloud version 2, but we want to run them side by side so that we get feedback and make further tweaks to it. You can easily access it through the foxesscloud.com website. If you go to foxesscloud.com and put /v2 at the end of that URL, it will bring you to the new version, and you can log in using your normal credentials. So if you're not aware that it's there, you can start using that immediately, but at the moment they're running side by side. Okay, so with regards to service and support, I just wanted to reiterate what I mentioned at the beginning, and so that you're fully aware of the channels that are open to you. Okay, so the phone support, obviously, and as I stated, those calls were routed to UK Techs. Okay, we have some of them based out of the office that me and Darius sat in now, and others remotely. That's the main number. If you're a certified Fox installer, that is if you are a registered, approved or Premier partner, you will have access to the WhatsApp messaging service. So that's the number on screen. You can use that. It's not really for immediate on-site support. You'll get a quick response on WhatsApp, but it won't always be immediate. So just be mindful of that. If you need support and assistance on site, it's important you call through to the main phone number. And then obviously email is there as an option as well. On the right, just reiterating on the warranties, okay, pretty much standard 10 years with some exceptions. PowerCube Evo have a 12-year warranty as standard, and the EQ batteries, they are also 12 years. Okay, EP remains at 10. Now those are automatic now. It was previously the case that you would need to register those on our website in order to qualify for what we refer to as a free extension from 5 to those 10 or 12-year periods. That's no longer required. You don't need to register them, it's automatic. You can optionally still register those if you wanted to generate a certificate to give to your customer in a handover pack, but you don't have to. It's automatic. And I think finally here we have the Fox ESS Tech Hub, launched about 8 to 10 months ago. It's an online resource with user guides, useful tips, downloads, information, support on things like PAS with checklists and templates of various sorts for arc fault and everything else. So you can go there. Anything that we announce from a technical perspective, new products, new guidance, it's published there. So please keep an eye on that website. Also, it's the website where you can actually book training. So if you're watching this and think you want to book on a Fox training course, you can go to that website, go into the events and training page, and you can book. Now, if you do that today, there are limited availability. Our sessions, when we publish them, fill up in no time. So we're looking to add more. So in terms of the in-person sessions that take place where I'm sat here, there is an online session in November, Derry, I think. Yeah. 18th of November, there's an online session that you can join. No cap on the numbers on that. And that will give you the registered installer status. So we don't have a policy at Fox that you have to have been on our training course in order to install our products. We do recommend it, of course. And so if you're not able to make it to Coventry where I am, or the dates just don't work for you, you can join that online session, and we will give you the registered installer status, so you can claim to be an approved Fox installer, and you will get plotted on our map at that point as well, our installer map. So yeah, so just an overview of the training there. I think, is that the end, George? I think we've
that is it.
Fairly quick, so we've got a little bit of time then for questions, should there be any.
Yeah, perfect. If you could, if I read out the questions as we go, Craig, if that's okay. So
Yeah.
we've got Zaki, who is asking, how much is the battery warranty on the Power Q?
It's 12 years.
12 years.
Yeah.
Perfect. Nice, easy one to start you off with. Frederick is asking, how do you isolate the house when you want to work on the electrical circuits in the house? Interesting question.
What, using the EPS box?
I would assume so, yes.
Right, okay. Well, it's a bit of an odd question, really, because
yeah.
I mean that's a question for the installer. You know, obviously you can.
When it comes to the training that you guys do, Craig, would that kind of thing be brought up? Would, that'd be a good question to ask in a training environment rather than on something like this potentially? Would you recommend?
Yeah, I mean, generally I've sat through probably about 100 of those sessions. So that particular question's never been asked.
Right.
So it's a bit of an left field one. There's obviously ways to safely isolate everything. From our perspective, obviously we're providing inverters and batteries. How you isolate on the AC side of those obviously would depend on the specifics of the site and the installation. Yeah. So
Perfect. Okie dokie. Guy's asking, will the H3 work in island mode fully off grid?
no.
No.
Okay, well, so that's a really good question, actually. So I can expand on that a little bit, because we do get that a lot. So our systems are designed for backup in an outage. Okay, so they have an EPS output. They will work in an off-grid scenario, but they're not designed to work in a completely off-grid setup. Okay,
right.
So if you've got some sort of, I don't know, lodge in the forest and you want to put a few panels on it, and you want to be completely off grid at all times, we're not recommending you use Fox products. Technically, they can do it, but it's not something we support, or we have the support mechanisms in place to allow for that. It's something we may consider, but if you're going completely off grid, then yeah, there are other solutions out there. The main issue being battery discharge below its minimum SOC, and controlling that, in circumstances where there's little or no PV for an extended period. We don't have built into our systems controls for that scenario because we don't market it as an off-grid solution, so or completely off-grid solution.
Do you
But
think
yeah,
would there ever be a
power
product in the
H3,
future?
no problem.
Would there ever be, sorry, Greg, a product in the future that you would have fully off-grid, or is that not something that you guys would be interested in looking at the moment?
Commercially, we're looking at it. I guess, and this is me being honest, really, and having and saying it as how it is. That there's not a huge demand for it right now, so it's driven really by demand, because obviously that requires specific changes, adaptations to the product, and we as a company have to make a commercial decision on whether or not that's in our interest to do. So
Of course.
we're looking at it genuinely. We are looking at that possibility, but at the moment, it's not something that's on the immediate agenda.
Cool. Henry is asking, will the EPS Box Pro come to the UK, or is that not possible to use on UK systems?
The EPS Box Pro being the three-phase EPS box. We are developing a new whole property EPS box for three-phase. Okay, and it's based around the product that Henry has just referenced there.
Yeah.
That we're hoping is going to be hit early in the new year in January. So so the answer is kind of yes, but it's going to be a slightly adapted version of that product.
Right.
And we anticipate it's not that far away. In fact, I'm sitting about 10 yards away from a prototype version of it. So it's not something that's like being thought about. It's being actively worked on. So early next year. Cool.
Lovely stuff. Felix is asking, what is the life cycle of the batteries, particularly the EP6 and 12?
Well, they're 6,000 cycles rated. Okay. Does that mean you're going to only get? I mean, it's one of those strange questions, really, where what can sometimes happen is that manufacturers will try and win datasheet wars by just upping the cycle life. It's a pretty meaningless thing to do, really, because a lot of manufacturers are then giving throughput warranty guarantees rather than cycles, because cycle and throughput are kind of the same thing, but kind of not the same thing. So if you're talking about what we rate it at, it's 6,000, because that's LFP. I always question any manufacturer that gives. I've seen some silly ones. We all know what the cells are, right? We actually make cells ourselves that go into other batteries on the market, which I can't name. Which then go out publicly with longer life cycles than we do. So okay, so always be a bit dubious. But I mean, look, these are rated for and we warranty them up to 12 years in some of the products. So we're confident in them. Your degradation on batteries with normal usage averages at 2% a year. It can be less than that, it can be slightly more. We do have the issue, of course, of where customers are heavily cycling their batteries because they're taking advantage of time of use tariffs, might be Octopus, and they're doing forced charging, forced discharging, things like that. They're going to run through that throughput limit quicker. But what doesn't change is the amount of cycles the battery goes through and the amount of throughput through the battery. It's the same. You're still putting the same energy through the battery, whether you do that in 8 years or whether you do that in 15 years. It's still the same. It's up to the end user, really, to make the determination of how they want to use the battery, because ultimately they're going to put the same amount of energy through it, regardless of how long that's for. So the long-winded answer to a very simple question is 6,000, but always take those things with a pinch of salt, and refer back to the nominal energy in the battery and the likely degradation of around 1.5 to 3% a year, and make your calculations that way.
Perfect. We've got somebody asking, how much load did the heated element in the batteries use? Do you know that?
Sorry, I just missed that.
Sorry, how much load does the heated element in the batteries use?
It's approximately 200 watts. Okay, 190 to 210 watts. Now, the cycle that will vary because it depends on the size of your battery stack. So in the case of the EQs, a small battery stack is going to warm quickly. A maximum one will take longer. Typically, you look at about 200 watt hours for a warming cycle, and that might take it from say 5 degrees to say 14, something like that. That's kind of the typical setting we see. So it's not huge, but there is obviously a power penalty. It does look to take from PV first of all, if there's PV available, rather than taking from the grid. Obviously, if it's at night time, there is no PV. It will also take from its own power. Okay, so if the SOC of the battery is above 40%, it will look to warm itself, utilizing some of its own stored energy. Third in line would be the grid power. You have to tell it if you want it to do it from grid, because you can turn it off and say don't. And in that scenario, you're looking around 200 watts. Again, long answer to a short question, but just wanted to give a bit of background to how that works.
No, definitely. Perfect. We've got Henry asking if the Evo expansion packs are coming anytime soon.
No. I wish I could give a better answer to that question. Look, I think we're being quite honest about this. We have this product which is scalable through parallel of full units. Now, I know that the immediate response from installers on this is to say, well, because I have it all the time, if you have to expand by paralleling, you've then got to resubmit to the DNO for approval. Okay, so we understand that. So we're working on a version of the Evo which will have a simple plug-in battery expansion pack, as Henry has asked. What's not clear at the moment is whether that can be applied to the product as it currently is, to be determined. So whether or not we launch a variant that has the option of expansion packs, or whether we make it compatible with the current version. We're working hard to make that happen. So it's not that it's not being worked on, it's just I don't have a direct answer to that question right now. But it's something will happen early next year, one way or another.
Lovely stuff. We've got Annabelle asking that if the warranties are now registered automatically, do Fox still send the customer warranty certificates out to the customers, or is that something that the installers would need to manually register and do themselves?
We don't send it out. So what we're doing here is recording the commissioning via the FoxCloud, because one of the recent changes to the warranty policy was to say you don't need to register it, but we expect this will be connected online. You know, that's key. In order to offer these long warranties, it needs to have a. Now, look, if the connection drops and it's a result of a product issue or something like that, that isn't going to disqualify it. But then we need to have seen it be connected online. The clock starts ticking at that point. So we're not issuing any certification or any documentation. Recording it internally. What we're looking to do, I think, because the question keeps coming up, is produce some generic certificates that installers, because I know a lot of installers like to give evidence of the warranty to the customer in the handover pack. Okay, that's understood. So whereas before they could just generate one and you can still do that on the website, by the way. You can still go to the Fox website and create that PDF. But what we're probably going to do is create, it's on Derry's to-do list, to create these generic ones that you can just send out that gives the customer the confidence.
Perfect. Lovely stuff. We've got somebody asking, do all H3 series hybrid inverters come with a chint meter inside the box as a standard? Should
do, yeah. It's a chint meter with CTs. It's standard issue with the product. There are some older H3 models where it was in a separate box. So what we had with the original H3 was we had 2 meters that you'd get with the product. One was a through meter, which was included in the box, and then everyone we shipped, the likes of yourselves, had a meter in a separate box. At this point now, everything has it in the box, but there could be some old stock where it's separate. So if you'd ordered one and you don't get that meter, it's because the distributor hasn't supplied it to you.
That's our fault. That's on us.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Not that happens very often, but it's happened once or twice.
In the event, so Jamie's asking, in the event of a grid failure and the battery backup powering the house, is the load or the demand of the house limited in any way?
Good question, but not limited. But obviously, there's a limit to what the inverter can supply. Now, it does have, like the Evo will give you 10 seconds at 200% its maximum output. But yeah, this is something you've got to be mindful of, you know, and this is the challenges of whole home. If the power goes down and the customer's running a hot tub, they're mowing the lawn, and the tumble dryer's going, you're going to exceed what the demand's going to exceed what the inverter can supply potentially. And what will happen is the inverter will go into something called EPS overload. And it's not harmful, it's not a problem. It will just go into a cycle. And it will keep checking for when that is in range, if you like. So it's educating the customer. You know, if the power goes off, you need to turn off your heavy loads. Because obviously, you know, especially with inductive loads, because they, you know, because the rating can be multiple times it's pulled, but the system will handle it. It will go into a checking cycle and wait for the load to come within range. The output in EPS mode is pretty high in our product. Essentially, you're getting the full output of the inverter in EPS mode. So, for example, a 10 kilowatt K series can deliver up to 10 kilowatts in EPS. But obviously, with inrush and at the point it goes down, if it's overloaded, it will need to go through this cycle, and it's down to the customer to turn off the heavy loads and ration what it is they want to power, which is sensible behavior anyway, the power outage, isn't it? So.
Perfect. Okay. So we've got Callum asking is there any way to extend the life cycle of the batteries at all? As in, if they're placed in certain conditions, is there an optimum condition, be that temperature or location, in your opinion, that would extend the life cycle of the batteries?
Yeah, so when we talk about rated cycles, and we have we don't share them publicly, but we can see, you know, degradation graphs and things like that. It's all based around 25 degrees ambient. Okay, when you that's kind of your sweet spot. Now, if you're outside of that by a few degrees, it's going to make minimal difference. If you're putting the battery through a lot of stress, you know, sub-zero temperatures, you know, outdoors or winter, and it's a non-heated battery, for example, then yeah, there's going to be a slight impact on that. But generally speaking, the temperature operating range is pretty wide, and they're not too sensitive to it. But if you're looking at a sweet spot, it would be that 25 degrees C, sort of temperature. I mean, I've got batteries at home. I'm lucky they're indoors. I know a lot of them are outdoors now. Mine run at pretty much 24, 25 degrees all the time because they sit in a room that's, you know, has that temperature. So, yeah, that's your sweet spot, but it's not particularly significant in terms of the battery longevity.
Perfect. Thank you. Liam's asking, can the Evo be stacked? And if not, is there any plans for this?
Stacked, physically stacked, or does he mean expansion? I think
I would say expansion, Greg.
Yeah, and I think it's kind of takes me back to the question previously. So at the moment, we have the ability to parallel through an EMS battery expansion. So I think, you know, people often reference Tesla and the Powerwall and the fact you can just stack them, you know, back to back. That will be coming next year. The unknown is whether or not it's going to be a new variant of the product that does it, or we can adapt the current one to allow for that expansion. And that's something we're looking at, and we don't really have a clear answer on that. So yes is kind of the answer, but we don't know how that's going to look just yet. For now, you would parallel through the EMS, and they would be wall mounted. We don't have a mechanism for paralleling by you know, doing them back to back. They have to go side to side on the wall.
Yeah.
I should also mention on the Evo, I didn't mention it in the presentation very quickly. There is a trolley that we're bringing out. Okay, now the Evo come with 4 handles. They screw into the sides of the units. They're easily maneuverable by 2 people because you've got 2 really strong handles on either side. But for those that would prefer some sort of dolly, which you can control using your drill, so it will mount it and raise it off the ground. We do have that coming. They're landing around now, so availability through the likes of yourselves will probably follow on a month or 2 down the line. But there is and I can reassure those that have used the trolley with another manufacturer, ours is so better priced than theirs, a huge distance. So it's not going to break the bank. The
perfect stocking filler for Christmas, you could say, Craig.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That's what you always wanted.
Exactly. Guys, thank you so much for all your questions. I'm afraid we can't answer any more. We're coming up to time now. But thank you for everyone that answered. Thank you so much to Craig and Derry for joining us today. Really, really insightful as always, guys. Some really exciting stuff coming out from Fox, as we're all used to these days as well. And yeah, thank you to all of you for joining us. Like I say, this has all been recorded, so we'll send this out to you in the next couple of days, and you can watch back on anything that Craig discussed today. And if there's any other questions, feel free to reach out to me or your account manager at Segen, whoever it may be. But yes, thank you guys, and we'll see you for the next one. Cheers.
Thanks. Thanks, everyone. Thank you.